Good morning. The Morrow family of Newgate Street, 1940. Strike a light. The Morrows have got their hands full in this episode. These excerpts from the Morrow family of Newgate Street chronicle the emotional and physical struggles of various Londoners during the 1940 Blitz. The narrative follows Robert, who grapples with the death of his mother and girlfriend while facing military rejection, and the Morrow family, who manage a hardware shop amidst the chaos of war. Key characters include Maud Morrow, a resilient widow, and her daughter Maggie, who navigate the hardships of rationing, pregnancy, and evacuation. Intertwined stories detail the execution of Donald Cox, the plight of a dying woman named Mrs. Barker, and the tragic death of a prostitute. The story culminates in the catastrophic firebombing of London, which ultimately destroys the family's livelihood and the surrounding community. Through these perspectives, the source captures a vivid portrait of civilian survival during Britain's most desperate hours. The AI voices do a wonderful job with this, and I will say my eyes got a little bit misty at times. Enjoy.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are settling in for something that feels both incredibly intimate and yet paradoxically massively epic in scale.
Mm-hmm.
We're opening up the second chronicle in the saga of the Morrow family.
The Morrow family of Newgate Street, 1940. And I think it's really important to situate ourselves right at the top here.
Yeah.
This is the second of 8 books. 8. We're tracking this one specific family through all the war years. If you were with us for the first chronicle, you saw the cracks begin to form. But this is where the dam breaks.
It really is.
Yeah.
And to set the stage, I just want to look at the bookends of this story. Because the source material paints this incredibly visceral picture right at the start and then, again, right at the end.
It's so cinematic.
It is. We begin in January 1940 in what historians call the Great Freeze.
A biblical winter. I mean, truly.
The Thames is frozen solid for 8 miles.
Mm-hmm.
Birds are literally freezing in midair and dropping onto the pavement. It's silent, it's white, and the whole city is just paralyzed.
Right. And then fast forward 12 months.
Yeah.
Exactly. We end in December 1940 in the Second Great Fire of London. The city is ablaze. The sky is red. And the heat is so intense, it's melting glass and window frames.
From ice to fire. And trapped between those two elemental extremes is this one family.
Just one family.
And they aren't generals. They're not politicians. They are trying to run a hardware shop. They're trying to figure out who to love. They're keeping secrets.
All this normal, everyday stuff.
Exactly. And they're doing all of this while the world around them systematically, physically falls apart.
So our mission today, I think, is to really unpack how ordinary life persists under that kind of pressure. We're not just talking about the troop movements or the political speeches, though they're there in the background.
Sure, they're the wallpaper.
Right. We're talking about the grit of daily survival. How do you maintain a stiff upper lip when your lip is, first it's frozen, and then 10 months later, it's getting singed?
And because this is the second book of 8, what we're really seeing is the evolution of their resilience.
That's a great point. They are not the same people they were in 1939. They can't be. They're hardening. They're adapting.
Okay, so before we jump into the frozen streets of January, let's do a really quick roll call, just for anyone who might be a little fuzzy on the key players left standing after the first book. Who are the Morrows now?
Okay, so at the center, she's the gravity that holds this whole solar system together, is Maud Morrow.
The matriarch?
She's the matriarch, a widow since her husband Jack died in the previous chronicle. She runs the hardware shop at number 9 Newgate Street. But, and this is so crucial for her character, she also has a shadow life. She's a herbalist.
I love that duality. She's selling nails and hammers at the front door and mixing, extractive poppy out the back.
She is the neighborhood's unofficial healer. The unofficial confessor, even.
Right. Then you have her children.
There's Maggie Morrow, the daughter, and she is in a very difficult position. She is currently pregnant, unmarried, and facing a massive, massive amount of societal judgment.
Because the father isn't just some guy.
No, not at all. The father is Donald Cox, a murderer who is, as the book opens, currently sitting on death row.
So Maggie is carrying the child of a monster in the eyes of the neighborhood.
In the eyes of everyone, really. And then finally, there's William. William Morrow, the son, just turning 18 as this story opens. And he is so eager to prove himself, to step out of his dead father's shadow. He's tired of the shop. He wants the war.
Okay, so that's the family. Now let's talk about the context. 1940, we often hear about the phony war.
Yes. That weird, eerie period from late 39 into early 1940. War had been declared, everyone had their gas masks, but nothing was really happening in Britain.
It was all prep.
All preparation and tension, rationing and blackouts, but no explosions yet. Not in London. This deep dive, this book, covers the moment that illusion absolutely shatters.
So let's walk into that. Segment 1, the big freeze. The source text describes this winter as the most severe in living memory.
It really was. You have to imagine the Thames frozen between Teddington and Sunbury. Southampton Harbor iced over, which stopped supply ships. Central London had been below freezing for a solid week. The text describes these ice storms snapping telegraph poles, trees just collapsing under the sheer weight of the ice.
It's a paralysis of the infrastructure.
Total paralysis. And in the middle of this frozen landscape, we meet a character who is feeling that cold internally as well. Robert Street.
Robert. He's such a tragic figure to start with.
He really is. He was the childhood sweetheart of Magdalen Cox,
who was murdered in the previous book.
Exactly. Robert is 20 years old, wearing his dead father's suit, which is too big for him, and he's carrying a bunch of paper lilies to a cemetery in the snow.
The image of him on that trolley bus is so stark in the notes. He's listening to women complain about the price of bread, seeing the sandbags and the barrage balloons, but he's in a bubble. He's disconnected.
He's completely detached. He visits the grave of his mother, who he had a very difficult, very fraught relationship with, and he has this realization that he doesn't need to visit her anymore. He's letting go of that obligation.
And then he goes to Magdalene's grave.
Then he goes to the pauper section to visit Magdalene. And this is where we really get inside his head and understand his struggle with the war effort.
Because every young man is expected to be a hero right now. If you aren't in khaki, you're suspect.
Precisely. You're seen as a shirker or a coward. And he's struggling with deep depression, obviously, but also this profound sense of failure. He tried to enlist.
Oh, he did.
He did. He wanted to go to Harlow for training. He wanted to be part of that wave of young men signing up, but he was rejected.
Rejected. He seems fit enough. He's young.
It was his eyesight. Specifically, color blindness, blue-yellow color blindness.
And that was enough to get you turned away.
In the early stages of the war, yeah. The medical officers were incredibly picky. They could afford to be. They had more volunteers than they knew what to do with.
So here's Robert, grieving the love of his life, rejected by the army, feeling utterly useless while the city prepares for Armageddon.
He's a carpet fitter. He's helping a priest light-proof his church, good, honest work. But in his mind, he feels like he's on the sidelines of history. A complete failure.
Meanwhile, William Morrow is having the exact opposite experience. He turns 18 on January 10th.
And William is desperate to get in. He's looking for a father figure. Now that Jack is gone, he's sort of latching on to people. He's talking to Bert Burrow, the family friend and local black marketeer, asking for advice.
But Bert is a character I always enjoy. He brings them a massive cut of prime beef that, fell off the back of a lorry, just so they can have a proper birthday meal.
A classic Bert move. He's the provider, the fixer.
But what tips the scales for William? Why does he sign up right then?
It's a small, very observant moment in the shop. He's serving 2 young soldiers who are on a 24-hour pass. And they're clean, they're confident, they're joking about giving Hitler a bloody nose.
He sees what he wants to be.
He sees that confidence, that sense of belonging, of purpose, and he craves it. He feels trapped in the hardware shop, surrounded by his mother and his sister and their problems. He wants to be a man. He wants out.
So he decides to enlist. And this leads to a scene that feels like it's straight out of a classic noir film, but it's written with such grounded, real emotion. The farewell at Paddington Station.
Oh, it's a gut punch. Maud had promised herself she wouldn't cry. She remembered her own mother crying when her father left for the First World War, and she swore she wouldn't replicate that trauma for William.
But she can't hold it in.
The chaos of Platform 7 just breaks that resolve.
It's the sensory overload, isn't it?
It is. It's the steam, the shouting, the whistles, the hundreds and hundreds of young men in these heavy wool coats, all looking too young. The realization hits her that this is not a game.
And William is just swept up in it.
He hangs out the train window, waving, looking excited, and then he's gone. And for Maud, the phony war ends right there.
It's personal now.
Her skin is in the game now, absolutely.
And just like that, the house feels emptier. But nature abhors a vacuum, and two new male figures enter the Morrow women's lives almost immediately. Let's talk about Richard Biggs.
Richard is such an interesting disruption to Maud's routine. He's an old flame.
From before Jack.
From before she even met Jack. He walks into the shop, very polite, very formal, asking for Mrs. Morrow.
And he finds her in the herbalist shed, her sanctuary.
He does. And he declares his intentions pretty boldly for an Englishman in 1940. He doesn't beat around the bush. He wants to be part of her life again.
And who is he? What does he do?
He's a member of the St. Paul's Defense League, which is a volunteer group. It means he's responsible for watch duty at the cathedral, protecting it from firebombs. He's a serious man, a steady man.
How does Maud handle this? I mean, she's a widow. Her husband hasn't been gone that long. Is this a scandal?
She's deeply conflicted. There's a lot of guilt there. She feels she's replacing Jack too soon. But the war accelerates everything.
All right. Time moves differently.
The loneliness is crushing. You don't know if you have a year or a week left. And surprisingly, Maggie, her daughter, is the one who pushes her.
Really? Maggie?
Yes. Maggie basically tells her mother to grab happiness while she can. It shows a real generational shift. Maggie is far less concerned with propriety and much more concerned with emotional survival.
Speaking of grabbing survival, we have to talk about the boy in the shed.
Freddie Robinson, this is just a heartbreaking introduction. Maud finds him sleeping in her shed in the freezing cold. He's 11, he's starving, and he absolutely refuses to speak. Not a word about who he is or where he came from.
And the family just takes him in, right? They feed him toast, they give him William's old bed.
They do. It speaks volumes about Maud's character. She can't turn a child away, no matter the circumstances. But the authorities do get involved.
Of course.
You have a Mrs. Hatfield and a Miss Crown from the council. The bureaucracy of child welfare is still grinding on, even with a war starting.
And we eventually get the truth about Freddie.
We do, and it's awful. It turns out his parents were killed in a car accident in Stepney Green. He was taken into police custody to be sent to an orphanage, but he ran away.
He ran from the police?
He just vanished. And somehow he found his way across London to Maud's shed.
And in a way, he becomes a surrogate son. William leaves, and Freddie arrives.
It's a perfect exchange of energy in the house. He gives them someone to care for who is right there, physically present, unlike William, who is away and silent. It keeps Maud grounded in the here and now.
So that's the winter. But as the ice thaws and spring arrives, the story takes a much darker turn. We move into segment 2, which is really about crime and punishment.
This is where the source material gets very, very gritty. We have to talk about the execution of Donald Cox.
Right. This is the man who murdered Magdalene in the previous book and who was the father of Maggie's unborn baby.
Correct. He's a former police constable, now condemned prisoner 3782. The text goes into this meticulous, almost forensic detail about his last days in Pentonville prison.
What's he like?
Broken. The depression, the refusal to play cards with the guards, just staring at the wall for hours. The bravado is all gone.
And the execution itself. It describes the executioner, Albert Pierpoint.
Pierpoint is a historical figure, and he was known for his absolute chilling efficiency. The source describes the cold precision of it. Pierpoint observing Cox surreptitiously through a peephole in the door.
Why?
To judge his weight and build for the drop calculation to make sure the neck breaks instantly. It was a science to him. The whole execution, from the moment they enter the cell to the drop, takes less than 10 seconds.
It's chilling. But what strikes me is the contrast. The state is about to ask millions of young men to go and kill other men in Europe, but here they are, meticulously, legally killing this one man in a small room in London.
It's the machinery of justice grinding on, regardless of the war. And notice the public reaction, or rather, the lack thereof.
Right, it's barely a story.
The text mentions it gets 2 inches of column space in the Times. That's it. There's a war on. One murderer dying doesn't make the front page anymore. Death has been devalued.
But it matters to the people he hurt. And this leads us to Mrs. Barker. She's the widow of the other man Cox killed.
Mrs. Barker is the tragic collateral damage of Cox's crimes. She is left destitute, she's ostracized by neighbors who don't know what to say to her, and she's in severe physical pain from some undiagnosed condition, which is probably cancer.
And she comes to Maud for help.
She does, and this is a pivotal moment for understanding Maud's morality. Mrs. Barker is suffering horribly. The doctors can't do anything for her, so Maud provides her with extract of poppy,
which is morphine.
Homemade morphine. Laudanum, basically. Maud gives her specific instructions. No more than 4 drops in a glass of water. But the subtext is screaming. Maud knows Mrs. Barker intends to take the whole bottle. She sees the look in her eyes.
It's assisted suicide. She's facilitating it.
Essentially. And when the news comes later that Mrs. Barker has died peacefully in her sleep, Maud has to confront that. She's a healer, but in this shadow world of the war, healing sometimes means ending suffering.
It really questions the ethics of care when the institutions have failed you.
Completely. Mrs. Barker had no one else.
That theme of civilian crime happening amidst the war continues with Molly Fowles.
Molly is a local prostitute, but she's a friend of the Morrow family. Maggie likes her. She's part of the fabric of the neighborhood.
And she's assaulted.
She's assaulted in her home and later found murdered.
And the police reaction?
Apathy. Total dismissive apathy. She's a fallen woman. They actually charge her with soliciting after she reports the assault, rather than investigating the attacker.
That's unbelievable.
And when she's murdered, it's treated as a low-priority cleanup. Just another dead prostitute.
But the Morrows don't see her that way.
No. Elizabeth, Maggie's best friend, goes to clear out Molly's flat and finds her diaries.
Oh, wow.
And this is the tragedy of it. The diaries reveal a life of hardship, yes, but also a full human being who was trying to survive, who had thoughts and feelings and dreams. We also meet Molly's estranged sister, Miss Emily Fowles.
She's a respectable country sister.
The polar opposite. Very religious, very proper, utterly shocked by Molly's life. But she does the right thing. She pays for the funeral.
It highlights this juxtaposition the author is playing with. Nations are fighting this massive war for freedom, but on the streets of London, women are being murdered, people are dying of cancer, and all these personal tragedies don't just stop because Hitler is on the march.
Life and death go on in all its messy forms.
Speaking of Hitler on the march, we hit segment 3. The war heats up. It's May and June of 1940. The phony war is definitively over.
The news from the continent is just disastrous. One bad report after another. The invasion of the Low Countries, the retreat from Dunkirk. Suddenly, the war isn't just something in the newspapers. It feels like it's knocking on the door. People are genuinely terrified of invasion.
And fear makes people do ugly things. This triggers a wave of anti-foreigner sentiment in London.
It gets very ugly, very quickly. Italy declares war on the side of Germany, and immediately the Italian community in London is targeted.
Just overnight.
Overnight. The source details the firebombing of Lipno's restaurant near Fleet Street.
And this is a place the Morrows knew, right?
Yes. Jack used to take Maud there for special occasions. It's a family business run by the same family for decades, but a mob firebombs it.
And what happens to the family?
They're rescued, but the father, Mr. Lipno, is interned just for being Italian. Sent to a camp on the Isle of Man. Maud is horrified. She sees neighbors turning against neighbors. It's that tribal fear response. Anyone other becomes the enemy instantly.
Amidst this rising tension, the pressure to evacuate Maggie and the children becomes intense.
Maggie is heavily pregnant and she has Freddie to look after. Maud insists they have to leave London. It's not safe.
So they go. They travel to Govelon in Wales.
Safety at last.
You would think. But this is one of the most interesting sociological insights in the book. They hate it.
They hate the safety.
They hate the alienation. Bert Barrow mentions that his niece was evacuated and found the country locals friendly as a fistfight.
Huh? That's a great line.
And Maggie finds the same thing. The boredom is one thing, but the hostility of the Welsh locals is unbearable. They're treated like city scum, like they're carrying disease or trouble. They're outsiders.
So they come back to London, to the bombs.
They come back. They prefer the danger of home, where they have community and identity, to the so-called safety of a place where they are treated like unwanted refugees.
That says so much about the human need for belonging. We'd rather risk death with our tribe than live safely with strangers.
And shortly after they return, amidst a raid alert, Maggie's baby is born.
Baby Juliet. Born at home, in the middle of all this chaos, with the family rallying around. And this brings Robert Street back into the picture in a big way.
Robert, who he left depressed and rejected by the army.
He's found his purpose. He's now an ambulance driver for the ARP, the air raid precautions. He's wearing a uniform. He's doing dangerous, vital work. And he completely steps up for Maggie.
Does he know the baby isn't his? That it's Cox's child?
Oh, everyone knows. That's the point. The baby is the child of Donald Cox, the murderer. But Robert is devoted to Maggie. He accepts Julia as his own. It's a redemption arc for him. Moving past his grief for Magdalene and finding a new reason to live, he's creating a new type of family unit out of the debris of the old one.
That brings us to segment 4. Secrets and lies.
Yeah.
Because even with the bombs starting to fall, the family drama doesn't stop. We find out something massive about Arabella.
Arabella, who is William's girlfriend, she's been acting very suspiciously, sneaking off, meeting a strange man. Elizabeth, Maggie's friend, spots her and assumes the worst.
That she's cheating on William while he's away at training.
Exactly, the classic Dear John story in the making.
But it's not a lover.
No, it's her brother, Mark.
Why is that a secret? I mean, why would she hide that?
Because Mark is a convicted murderer.
Why?
He served 20 years in prison for killing someone in a fight. He was released early due to the war effort. The government needed manpower so desperately they were unlocking the cells for nonviolent offenders. And some violent ones, too.
So he's out on license.
Yes. But Arabella's mother, a very proud, very image-conscious woman, had disowned him. She pretends he doesn't exist. So Arabella is secretly meeting him, giving him food from her rations, trying to reconnect. She's risking her entire social standing to help her brother.
How does William react when he finds out? You'd think a soldier in training would be horrified.
He's surprisingly, wonderfully accepting. It actually strengthens their bond.
Why do you think that is?
Again, I think the war just shifts people's moral compass. A past crime matters less when the whole world is killing each other. The scale of morality has been completely skewed. What's one murder from 20 years ago when thousands are dying every week?
That's a really good point. We also meet Miriam, who is Bert Barrow's niece.
Yes, Miriam visits Maud for treatment. She has a black eye from a so-called domestic dispute at a fundraiser. And Maud, in her herbalist mode, gains her trust.
And Miriam confesses something.
She confesses she's an ex-prisoner, too. She stole a loaf of bread for her starving family years ago and did time for it.
Maud really becomes this confessor figure, doesn't she? This magnet for secrets.
She absolutely does. For Mrs. Barker, for Molly's memory, for Miriam. She heals the broken women who fall through the cracks of the official war effort. The hospital heals the soldiers with physical wounds. Maud heals the women with wounded pasts.
And we can't forget Freddie.
Okay.
He pulls another disappearing act.
The kid is relentless. The authorities, Miss Crown specifically, force him to evacuate again, this time to Taunton. Another attempt to get him to safety.
And he hates it, I guess.
Hates it. So he runs away again and hitchhikes all the way back to London.
Hitchhikes. An 11-year-old child.
In 1940, yeah. He turns up in Reverend Harper's kitchen, filthy and starving, stealing milk from the counter.
That is resilience. But my God, it's also terrifying.
It just reinforces that theme we saw with Maggie's evacuation. Freddie chooses the danger of a loving home over the safety of strangers. He wants to be with the Morrows. He's part of the tribe now. He's voting with his feet.
Okay, segment 5. September arrives. The Blitz begins in earnest.
This is the turning point. September 7th, 1940. The phony war is a distant, almost laughable memory. The source text becomes very sensory here. It's not just about what they see, it's about the smell.
What kind of smell?
Cordite from the anti-aircraft shells, burnt sugar from a destroyed Tate and Lyle factory on the docks, wet ash, gas from broken mains, this miasma that just hangs over the city for months.
And the daily routine, the nightly routine, completely changes. It's not just occasional alarms anymore.
No, it's every single night. The family has to decide where to sleep. There's the concrete monstrosity, a surface shelter across the road that's cold and damp and feels flimsy.
Right.
Or the deep tube stations, like St. Paul's, which are crowded and they smell of unwashed humanity, but they feel safer because you're so far underground.
The text mentions the lack of privacy, the sheer indignity of it all, peeing in buckets in front of strangers.
It degrades people, but in another way, it also creates this strange, intense, shared experience. You're all in the muck together. However, not everyone complies at first. We have to talk about Mrs. Henderson.
The elderly tenant who lives in the flat above the shop.
She is the absolute embodiment of the stiff upper lip, almost to a suicidal fault. She refuses to use the shelters. She said she'd rather die in her own bed.
Did she stick to that?
For a while. But eventually, the sheer terror of the high explosives, the nonstop noise, the way the building shakes, it breaks her resolve. She capitulates and goes to the shelter with everyone else.
It symbolizes that the war has reached a pitch where even the most stubborn Victorian values can't withstand the physics of a 500-pound bomb.
When the walls start to crack, philosophy goes out the window.
And then tragedy strikes very close to home again. Elizabeth.
This is just heartbreaking. Elizabeth is pregnant. She's just married Oliver. During a raid, they decide to stay in the cellar of the Viaduct Tavern where they live and work, rather than go to a public shelter.
A roll of the dice.
And they lose. A bomb hits Cock Lane just behind them. It destroys 3 houses, the tavern is badly damaged, and the cellar collapses.
And Elizabeth is trapped.
Elizabeth is buried. She's pulled out alive, but she's severely injured. She loses the baby, and the doctors have to perform an emergency hysterectomy.
God, that's permanent.
It's the absolute randomness of it. One decision, let's stay in the cellar tonight, and her entire future is rewritten. She can never have children. She can't work at the pub anymore because of her injuries. Her life path is completely and irrevocably severed.
It really drives home that point you made earlier. Survival isn't just about not dying. It's about carrying these massive, life-altering wounds.
Exactly. The survivors are the walking wounded, in every sense.
Which brings us to the finale, segment 6, December 1940, the destruction of Newgate Street.
It starts with a cruel tease, a kind of Christmas truce. There's a brief, eerie pause in the bombing around Christmas.
They actually have a celebration.
They manage one. They have chicken and rabbit, which is almost certainly sourced by Bert Barrow on the black market. It's a moment of fragile normalcy.
But Richard Biggs Maud's partner, he warns them.
He's savvy. He's on watch at St. Paul's. He hears the chatter. He knows the Germans aren't done. He urges them, pleads with them, to use the deep shelters at St. Paul's tube station, not the flimsy street shelter. He senses something big is coming.
And he's right. December 29th, the Second Great Fire of London.
This is a massive historical event. The Luftwaffe returns, but this time it's not just high explosives. They drop thousands and thousands of incendiary bombs. The city of London, the old medieval heart, just burns.
The description in the book is terrifying.
And the sky turning red. Paternoster Row, the center of the publishing trade, is completely destroyed. 5 million books go up in flames. Think about that cultural loss, just incinerated.
And the Morrows are underground.
They took Richard's advice. They are deep in St. Paul's station. They can feel the vibrations through the earth. When they emerge the next morning, the world has changed. The air smells like a funeral pyre.
They try to go home.
They do. They walk through the smoking ruins, but the police have cordoned off their street. They bar the way. And then comes the revelation.
The entire south side of Newgate Street is gone.
The entire block.
Number 9.
Reduced to gray rubble, splintered wood, and dust.
Everything. The shop, the home, Maud's little herbalist shed.
Everything. The hardware store that Jack built, the rooms where the children grew up, the sanctuary they had defended for a year. Yeah. It's just gone, wiped off the map.
That is devastating. They haven't just lost a house, they've lost their identity. They are shopkeepers with no shop. They are the Morrows of Newgate Street, and Newgate Street isn't there anymore.
And they are refugees in their own city. The book ends with them being processed in a school hall, sleeping on the floor with hundreds of strangers. It's a complete stripping away of their status, their privacy, their security. Everything they had is gone.
But Maud doesn't break, does she?
No. And this is the note the book and the year ends on. She's lying on the floor and she declares, "I will not stay on this floor another night." She is determined to rebuild. She's lost the physical structure, but the family is still there. Beaten, but there.
So let's unpack this. We've gone from ice to fire. What does this all mean for us listening today? What's the takeaway?
I think it really challenges our definition of victory. You know, in war movies, victory is shooting down planes or taking a hill. In the Morrow saga, victory is darker and quieter and much more complicated.
How so?
Victory is keeping a runaway boy safe when the state wants to put him in an institution. Victory is forgiving your girlfriend's brother who is a murderer because family matters more than his past. Victory is surviving the complete loss of your home and absolutely refusing to give up.
It's resilience versus just plain survival.
Exactly. They survived the bombs. But the social fabric, the crime, the illegitimacy, the secrets, that didn't pause for the war. In fact, the destruction of the physical home might be a catalyst for all of that.
That's a fascinating thought. How do you mean?
Well, think about it. The shop was their anchor, but it was also kind of trap. It held them in their roles. Maud, the widow shopkeeper. Maggie, the shamed daughter. Now that it's rubble, all those secrets, Maud's relationship with Richard, the truth about Freddie, Maggie's child, and her relationship with Robert, they are all out in the open. They're untethered. They have to reinvent themselves.
So the provocative thought for the listener is, does total destruction actually liberate them in some strange way?
That's the question for book 3, isn't it? What happens to a shopkeeper with no shop? What happens to a family with no home? Are they weaker, or are they finally free?
What a place to leave it. The Morrows have survived 1940. They started the year freezing, they ended burning, but they are still standing.
But they are. We'll see you in 1941.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.